Alright, so ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show. Terry Lynn here with Travis Marziani. Today we kind of got a book review mashup. So Travis brought a book to my attention called Primal Branding, Creating Zealots for Your Brand, Your Company, and Your Future. And I kind of looked at some book reviews. I've not read this yet, but Travis has, so he's going to kind of do most of the talking. But as I looked through the reviews, I noticed it was really similar to Seth Godin's All Marketers Are Liars. So we're kind of just doing a mashup of both books today, just kind of see if there's anything that you can get value out of. So, Travis, what's up?
A lot of cool things. So I'm officially in Vegas. I haven't heard from any of the listeners. If anyone's in Vegas, let me know. I'm trying to get some meetups going. I'm scheduling something pretty much every week while I'm here for different meetups. So if you're in Vegas, let me know. But one of the things I'm doing while I'm working here is working on my YouTube channel, which by the time you hear this, it should be live. I'm going to release a ton of videos this Sunday, the same day that this podcast is released. And then Monday, I'm going to release an e-commerce news episode. So the schedule is going to be every Monday, I release e-commerce news. That way you guys can kind of stay ahead of the game. For instance, when new advertising platforms come out, like Facebook lead ads, or when AdWords first came out, and things like that, it was the quick movers, the people that got there at the beginning that got the advantage. So that's the point of e-commerce news. And then I'm going to release some other videos. Tuesdays I'll do like tips and tricks, and Wednesdays Q&A, some other things like that. But I'm really trying to hit the YouTube hard because I believe there's a lot of value that can be added to the e-commerce world through YouTube, and I don't think anyone's doing it properly. So I'm going to be that guy.
Cool. So can I get your autograph soon, or?
No, it's usually $10 to $15. I'm starting off low.
High price point, man. You use like a discount code?
You can use a discount code. Actually, eventually when I see you again, I want to do like a video together, but who knows when that's going to be.
Who knows when that's going to be? Yeah, exactly. All right, so for me, I guess it's Tet Holiday / Chinese New Year here in Vietnam. Kind of the same holiday, but they call it something different here. And so everything's closed, but I boomeranged a bunch of emails to suppliers. So I don't know if you guys know this tool called Boomerang. Another one's called Streak. It can let you schedule emails in Gmail to be replied on a certain date or time. So, if you don't want to send emails a bunch of days, you want them to go out at a certain time, like say it's a holiday, you can pre-schedule them to go out once everyone's back in the office and things like that. So it's a very cool tool if you ever need something like that. Alright, so today we're going to talk about primal branding, creating zealots for your brand, your company, and your future. Alright, so you want to start off the book with a quick intro here?
Alright, so this book I actually found while I was doing research for my YouTube channel, because there's a person that talks all about how to make YouTube channels, and he said he recommends this book for everyone. And he said, obviously he was talking about for people that have YouTube channels, but really any kind of business it's very applicable for. And the whole point is to kind of create zealots, create people that just love your brand. And he did a lot of research. And if you do read the book, it's 90% case studies. I think only the first 10% or so is actually the points we're going to talk about here. But so he looked at all these different brands like Apple, Starbucks, you name it, Nike, any big brand, and tried to figure out what do they have in common, what makes them so people just love the brand. And he came up with 7 points. The 7 points are creation story, the creed, the icons, the rituals, the pagans, the sacred words, and the leader. And we'll talk about each one of these different 7 ones, but he said that a lot of times when brands aren't finding success, it's because they're missing one of these elements. And pretty much if you follow all 7 of these elements, you're going to get followers. You can still have success even if you only have a few of these elements within your brand, but it's almost guaranteed if you add all 7 of them in there.
But how many of them actually had good products? I kind of want to be a devil's advocate here. Like the ones you researched, like are they all decent companies, or like could you have these 7 and still fail because you don't have a good product? Like that's a very possible scenario too, right?
Sure. Yeah. I don't know enough. Supposedly this is what this guy does like for a living. He tries to figure it out. My counter argument would be how many people have great products but don't follow these rules. And he gives examples in the book of that. Yeah. And I think the product, don't get me wrong, you need to have a decent product, but more important, I think this stuff's just as important. It's kind of like the engineer mindset versus the marketer mindset. Marketers make more money for a reason. Engineers have better products, but they don't know how to explain those values to people. So that's where I think this comes in.
Well, I guess along that point, McDonald's doesn't make the best hamburger, but they sell 1 billion every year. So
Yeah, I don't think Nike. Oh, so Nike doesn't make the best shoe. I mean, some people would argue that they do, but like in the book, they talked about, at least during the time that this was taking place, they interviewed athletes, and athletes said, well, other shoes might fit better or be more functionally better, but I feel cooler in a pair of Nikes. It's debatable whether Apple has better products or not. The iPhone, there's definitely been times where the iPhone's not a better product. The iPod was not a better product. I always had the knockoff versions. I mean, I do like Macs, don't get me wrong, but whether or not they're the better product isn't as important as how cool people feel when they
Yeah,
use
well,
them.
the thing is, best in the world is actually a subjective thing, right? Like, if it was snowing right now, a Lamborghini is not the best car in the world. It's a tractor with chains on the wheels that can get you around, right? So it's like if you look at like buying phones, like people have different budgets, different needs, and what's best for you may not be the best for me too. So
It's also how it makes you feel. I mean, if, for instance, with an Apple laptop, some people, when they buy that, they have a feeling of like, this is an awesome laptop. I'm going to feel proud of it. Other people, if they had that same laptop, they'd be like, oh, that's disgusting. I want like an Alienware gaming computer. It really depends on what story you tell yourself, I guess.
yeah, exactly. Because Apple computers aren't that great for gaming. They're not that great. You just get a better value machine on a Windows, but that's a side tangent.
I agree, but I didn't want to start a whole debate here.
All right, so let's get into creation story then. What's the deal with this one?
So creation story is kind of how you came up with the product, and he goes over a bunch of different examples. For instance, and some of them might not be quite as well known as they once were, but you've probably heard the creation story of Nike. It was a guy that had a waffle iron and put it on some shoes. You've probably heard the creation story of a lot of different brands. Steve Jobs in the garage starting up Mac. There's a lot of these, and so it kind of brings you in. It kind of brings you in and makes you feel like you're a part of this story, like it's not just some big juggernaut. I mean, even Starbucks has a creation story. It was just originally up in Seattle. It was like a one shop kind of place, and then it grew supposedly because it had the best coffee, though that's debatable now. It probably doesn't anymore.
So why is creation story point number one?
Well, it's really, it's the beginning of your company. I mean, it's where you're able to really connect. So for instance, with my company, the creation story would be my mom making custom dance clothing, looking for something better. So that's a common thing, actually. Like, there's one of the best creation stories is I was a whatever person. I was a person looking for this product and I couldn't find it, so I made it better. So for my mom, it was, I was a dance clothing designer and people kept coming to me with these problems and I wanted to fix it. I wanted to do something better. So it's something that people are able to relate to, basically.
But it's not like customer focused, right? It's like about you, from what I'm hearing.
It is, but at the same time, it's like a reflection. It's like a mirror. So if you can tell your story, like, hey, I was looking for this thing, or if the customer can see themselves in your position, or even if they can identify with the cult that you're a part of, the brand that you're trying to sell, it's very powerful.
Yeah. So I guess on the other side, with all marketers are liars, like in that book, he's saying the first thing is actually worldview. It's similar to story, but it's not about who you are. It's kind of what the customer believes and their bias. For example, like, so if you say like vegan people, because we had this conversation offline, it's like they don't want to do anything with the animal kingdom. Like, they don't want to use honey, eggs, or anything too. So it's kind of like starting from what people believe and then figuring out a story from there. But I guess it's just a different way of looking at it too.
Yeah, I think the creation story is all about bringing someone in, making them aware of how you started, kind of feeling like they were there at the beginning.
Yeah, I think as long as it aligns with what they believe too, like say, we're digital nomads, like, I used to work at an office, blah, 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 and then I quit my job. Like, as long as the creation story follows that, I think that's a good way to go. Yeah. All right, cool. Yeah. So number 2, the creed.
All right. So the creed is kind of like your motto, So for instance, with Apple, it's think different. So IBM, I didn't realize this at the time, but IBM originally had the motto, I think it was just think. And then Apple wanted to pit themselves against IBM as kind of the opposite, like the cooler company. So they said, think different. Nike, just do it. It's like, what is your tagline? What makes it so people can identify with you? And for instance, for my YouTube channel, I was thinking a lot about this, and I'm like, create freedom through e-commerce, because that's something that everybody can grab a hold of and say, I want more. Like, who doesn't want more freedom in their life? But to me, with the YouTube channel, it's not just about creating freedom. It's specifically through e-commerce. Like, look, if you want to create freedom by doing yoga in China, this YouTube channel is not for you. So the creed is something that people can get behind, and almost think about it as like something that you could put on a shirt that people are like, yeah, this is what I'm trying to do.
So it's like seeing. It's like what am I trying to think of? It's like those videos people made a couple years ago called like shit people say, like shit girls say, or like shit yogis say. It's kind of like stuff like that, right? Like tagline that identifies with people and things like that.
Yeah. I mean, kind of. I mean, it's almost like it should sum up the company. It's something that people a tagline. I mean, it's pretty easy to explain like that.
So I guess how is this different from your USP then? Does he talk about this in the book?
No. I mean, should involve your USP, but it should be a little bit like catchier, a little bit more. But it doesn't just have to be. So, for instance, think different. That's Apple's USP. That doesn't really, or that's Apple's creed. It doesn't really say much about the products specifically, but it's like the general feel. It's like part of the community. It's saying, hey, we think different. It doesn't mean that the computers think different. Just do it with Nike. It's the feel of the company. It's trying to say like, hey, we're an athletic brand. Just do it. Just work hard. Just get things done. Doesn't mean that the shoes are just going to do it for you. Doesn't mean that anything is USP related to Nike. It's just that's like the motto your customers can get behind.
Yeah, I feel like this stuff becomes very buzzwordy if you're like trying to think of a creed. Like it becomes super like abstract, or you try to come up with one, especially if you're like a small company. But maybe that's just me.
Well, I mean, it doesn't have to necessarily be, but look, a lot of them, it should be something kind of emotional. It should be something that people are like, yes, I can stand behind that. Something that you'd, put on a flag and fly above you and say, yes, this represents me. This line.
Yeah. All right. Cool. I can find that. And how about next one? The icons.
So the icons they could be a couple different things. They're like the logos, the products, basically the images that people identify with it. So for instance, with Apple, obviously you have the little Apple symbol, but you also have the computer itself, the design of an iPhone, that Steve Jobs is even an icon. When you see Steve Jobs, you instantly think Apple. So you need some kind of icon. And the reason is, once again, like as humans, we need some kind of visual representation of a brand. So if you're Nike, again, they have the swoosh. McDonald's has the golden arches. It's something that instantaneously, when someone sees it, they think of you. They think of your company, and which is very important because we need that kind of abstract logo or picture or whatever image that as humans we can stand behind.
Well, I think a lot of it comes down to like subtle design things. Like if it's a website specifically we're talking like typography, like your spacing, your photography, the way your text is written, things like that. Like very subtle things that kind of communicate a message that probably, I think most people put too much weight into an icon. It's just me, because I think an icon is like, like an icon, like a Nike swoosh didn't mean anything until they built the whole brand around it of like being an athlete and the whole story of like sponsoring Jordans and things like that too, right? Because they bought it for like what, $200 in the 80s or something like that.
I agree, but I mean, imagine if every time you saw Nike, the word Nike was a different face, font type. If every time you saw Nike, it had like a different logo on it, it wouldn't mean anything. So you're right, but at the same time, you need a logo.
So you're talking about a consistency issue.
Yes, you need something like, so for instance, maybe your podcast is a certain style, like John Lee Dumas says like, are you ready to ignite? That is an icon of his. That is something when you hear, are you ready to ignite? You're like, oh, it's time for John Lee Dumas. Things of that nature where it's just like, you see it and you're instantly able to recognize it. Maybe if you had a special type of font and spacing on your blog and every article was the same, if someone went to another blog that had the same font and spacing, they might think to themselves, oh, wow, that looks a lot like the Build My Online Store blog. Then it's an icon. It's something that makes you unique and stand out.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. And I guess kind of the all marketers are liars side, kind of he breaks down icons into attention, bias, and vernaculars. So basically he's saying, you can't force people to pay attention now, so don't be a crusade marketer. A lot of people don't want to change what they believe, so you want to just sell nuts to squirrels. Don't try to convince dolphins that nuts are delicious. And so part of it is as you frame nuts, Like you want to use words and icons and things like that that appeal to that belief that they like nuts. So play along with that story. All right, so number 4, the rituals.
So the rituals can be a lot of different things. For instance, I think when I think of rituals, I think of hotels. So the hotels, when you check in, there's a certain flow to it. There's certain things that happen. Maybe when you go there, you're handed like if you're going to a nice hotel, you're handed some kind of like a welcome gift or like a welcome drink. There might be a certain smell that comes. This is actually a big part of the book. They were talking about how a lot of companies are starting to make signature smells, specifically like hotels or shops. For instance, with Apple, you walk in there and there's actually, I haven't been to an Apple store in a long time, but there's a certain thing like you have to go get your number and go to the Genius Bar or whatever, which is a funny thing in itself. But like for instance, another one is Starbucks. You're going to go up to the register. You're going to probably wait in line. Part of the ritual even is paying more money than you should. You know that it's an expensive cup of coffee. Then you're going to order it. You're going to go over, stand. They're going to call your name and hand it to you. Not all coffee shops work like that. Some coffee shops, you sit down and they bring the coffee to you. But this ritual of overpriced coffee is Starbucks. So that's kind of where the rituals are. Another one, a ritual I'm trying to create for my VIP customers is they order from us, and within a day or two, we call them and say, "Hey, when do you need your order by?" And then after they get the order, we call them again and say, "Is everything okay?" And then a month later, we send them a letter. So that is a ritual. It's something that people can expect. I mean, we've all had experiences with companies where the first time we went in there was really good, and then the second time wasn't quite as good because they didn't follow that same ritual. Maybe it was the person working behind the counter didn't ask us how our day was going or whatever it was, but we as humans, we like some level of consistency. We like some kind of ritual.
So on the All Marketers Are Liars side, he kind of phrases as experience. So kind of not just, from your product, is also like the 5 senses. Right? Like when you say Starbucks, you go into the store, there's a certain lighting that's consistent in all Starbucks, like the wooden chairs, the brown and green kind of decor they have with the dark ceilings, stuff like that. Kind of like you feel, once you walk into Starbucks, you feel that something's going on here. Even like the music they play in all of them too. So like I guess for like a store, it would be like your product pages, your web experience, social accounts, like how you interact with people from the very first touch all the way to even when they unbox your product, like your product packaging, your shipping. What is the unboxing experience like? If you look at like an Apple product, like when you unbox it, like it's awesome. Like the white box with the Mac in it, like it feels awesome, right? It's kind of like when you get a Starbucks, where you get that maybe the holiday one, the red maroon cup with that holder on it, the cardboard holder on it. Like it feels awesome, right? So it's like, I think a lot of this sounds very high level, but when you think about it, how to apply it to your store, it's like, well, your on-site experience and your product experience and even your brand experience too. Like how can you engage all the senses while playing to someone's worldview and the story that appeals to them too? Yeah. So sorry everyone, there's a house cleaning in my house now, so I can't do anything about it. You might hear some running water, but it's cool. All right, so number 5, the pagans. What's the deal with this one?
So the pagans think of them as like the opposing team. So if you're a Coke fan, if you really are on Team Coke, Pepsi is a pagan to you. It's something to kind of rally against. You're like, oh, I hate those people. There's a lot of different examples. If you're a Nike fan, then Reebok, Adidas, Puma, those are the pagans. You see someone, if you're part of Team Nike and you see someone wearing Adidas, it's like, oh, you're not an insider. Apple does this really well. You ever see how Apple people are pretty cliquey? It's like you pull out a laptop that's an Apple laptop at a coffee shop, you'll have a little bit more in common with some of the other people there. There'll be like a sense of like, okay, you belong. You pull out a Windows laptop and it's kind of like, oh, you're a pagan. You're a non-believer in our organization. But it's important that there is these pagans because humans like some competition. They like us against them mentality. I mean, this is a little off topic, but I heard once that if you want to end like war within the world, the only way to ever do that would be to have like an outside force that we all have to rally against. Because we do a really good job when there's an outside force against us as humans rallying together. But when there's no kind of outside force, we kind of disperse. We're a bunch of different countries fighting randomly. And it's the same thing with products. If you are Coke, it's kind of good for there to be a Pepsi because then it's like you get those people that are the hardcore, the zealots, the your biggest fans.
Yeah, like look at how many taxi companies in a city hate Uber now, or like like zombie outbreak movies or UFO movies where the whole world kind of unites and like an Armageddon they try to blow up the asteroid. Obviously it's a movie, but I mean I'm just kind of thinking of some examples off the top of my head here. But I think
Yeah, I mean, there's parallels in history. I mean, that's happened where like tribes unite to fight an outside force. So it's a fairly common thing, actually.
yeah, like was it the enemy of the enemy is my friend basically
Yeah,
type of thing. And I guess like
the enemy of my enemy.
yeah, the enemy of my yeah, exactly. But I guess like another level is just that like there's people with different beliefs and stories in the world, and like if you frame them correctly, for example, like I'm gonna go back to the vegan thing. Like they call people that eat meat arrogant flesh eaters, right? So it's like that word immediately once you hear it, you feel that there's a divide between two types of people that don't eat meat or eat meat, or like cruelty free. It's like the same thing, right? Like it's immediately once you hear these words, it's like oh, like which side do you fall upon? In some ways, yeah. Which
Yeah,
kind of leads into the next
yeah,
one, the
absolutely.
sacred words.
Yep. Yeah. So this is, I think, something actually everyone listening to this will be able to relate with. So, have you ever been having a conversation and you just start vibing with someone and you know right away that you have similar interests? One of the reasons that happens is because they use sacred words. For instance, I might casually in a conversation drop something like, "Yeah, my AdWords account isn't doing as well as I'd like it to do," and if the other person asks me what's AdWords, I know they're not on the inside. They're not a e-commerce person. But if they look at me and they say, "Oh, what's going on? Is there a problem in your conversions or whatever?" Then I know they're an insider. And like that, I don't have to think about it. I just know, all right, we're on the same wavelength. I've had this kind of conversations a lot. I mean, for instance, I like to talk sometimes about abstract like philosophy, and if I can have a conversation and people know a certain few buzzwords, then I know the jargon that comes with it. Then I know, all right, this person's an insider into this world, and we're gonna have a lot in common. Same thing goes with brands. So I can't think of a specific one with like Apple or Nike. I'm sure Starbucks. You have like tall, grande, all that kind of stuff. If you know that jargon, then you're an insider. I know of it, but I don't really like know exactly.
Yeah, there's all these things, like especially living in Vietnam, when you meet someone new, you're like, oh, what do you do? "Oh, I do online marketing." It's like, well, do I just throw in like, PLA stuff or email marketing, or do I just throw something very high level and see how much they actually understand and do it from there too? So actually, another example is that I had an old roommate last year. Her brother visited, and he was like ex-military guy, and then we were just talking about like random stuff, right? And basically, I brought up this word called the OODA loop. Did you ever hear about this? Yeah, so basically, it's like a military term on how fast you can make your decisions. Basically, it's called observe, orient, decide, and act. And then he's like, he's like, oh, OODA loop, and then he like gave me a fist bump because like it's kind of like in his jargon. He's like, wow, he didn't expect civilians to know this too, basically. So a lot of things like that too, right? It's like when you're traveling, like YouTube ad, Facebook ads. Most people have no idea how it works, right? But when you come across someone that knows it, you're like, oh, okay, cool. Like we're at the same level of understanding, at least closer than where we were 10 seconds ago, too.
Yeah, and I mean, once again, the same thing applies with companies. If people know, it doesn't even have to necessarily be jargon. It could just be like a little bit about a company. You're talking with someone that owns Mac, and they're complaining about an issue. You're like, oh, you're a Mac owner too, and this is very subconscious. It's just like, all right, we're connected. We're part of the same tribe. So first off, as a company, you should try to have those sacred words. You should try to have those things that people know. For instance, I mean, I guess with mine, this is one of the categories I need to work on, but DIY dance costume is something I'm trying to make a little bit more bigger. I mean, it's already a phrase, but I'm trying to make it so it's like a more well-known thing within the dance clothing community. But there's other things like that.
Yeah, one thing he talks about in All Marketers Liar is that the way you frame things with the words we're talking about also reflects on what story the customer believes. So, for example, I'm just going to throw out a few here. So, file sharing versus stealing, cruelty-free versus paleo, firearm safety versus banning handguns, UFO buff versus conspiracy theorist, police clubs versus baton, fat lady versus big woman, committee versus task force. Like they're the same thing, but they're different frames that apply to a different story based on the words you use. So like like if you can respectfully, target someone's worldview based on the way you frame it, that's the way you can get their attention too. Because if it conflicts with them, they're not gonna care about it, right? Like, why would I care about someone that, is talking about some job at a big bank? Like, it just doesn't apply to me anymore, so I'll just ignore it, right? So kind of things like that too. I guess it's very subconscious, but you have to be very careful with the words you choose too. And if you're very deliberate and know your customer stories in the head, you can kind of tap into that too. And I think a good way to do this is, like I said earlier, if you go on YouTube and you get like shit girls say, or like shit, firearm nuts say, or like, like gun buffs say, you can get a lot of good vernacular on what people in different markets use. Or like those posts on BuzzFeed, like 10 ways you're an animal lover, and then like you look at those stuff, you're like, oh, okay, this is really lets you get into someone's head, and then you can frame a message around that too. So yeah, kind of what I'm doing too with the rebranding. But anyway, that's a different topic. So number 7, the leader.
So the leader, this actually, I kind of mentioned this earlier, but the leader's a little bit different. Usually the leader should be a person or a mascot. And the reason is, I mean, you look at tribal society, we're all basically, we're only a few generations removed from tribal society, but it's still deep within our DNA. So we all like some kind of a leader. And for instance, Steve Jobs is a good one. I mean, if you're a Windows fan, though, then it'd be Bill Gates, Betty Crocker, or what's her name? The lady that went to jail for insider trading, the blonde-haired Martha Stewart. She represented a whole, before she did the insider trading, she represented like a whole demographic of people. So it's like, if you can have, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a real person. It could be a mascot. Like, for instance, what is it? Tony the Tiger. He represented like athleticism and, this and that. So it's like, hey, get behind this. This is what our brand represents. Where Steve Jobs obviously represented a little bit more realistically the think outside the box, like, black turtleneck, like I'm a artsy type person. So the whole point of the leader is someone that you can kind of rally behind and be like, yes, that is the person or that is the symbol of what I like.
Yeah, I guess the thing is, it doesn't always have to be you. In some ways, like, I guess it's nice to be a person, but it could be like a mascot, like you said, Tony the Tiger, or that parrot on Fruit Loops, or what was that frog on Smacks? That cereal up there, or Captain Crunch. Yeah, exactly. Or like sports teams use mascots too, right?
Yeah.
But I think this leader stuff is just, I think like the leader needs a good story too in some ways. Like, if you have a good story, a leader should be a part of that. Like, if you just have a leader because you have a leader, it's kind of weird too. So
yeah, Jeff Bezos with Amazon, not only did he have the story of driving across country and, but he's an interesting guy. It's like, all right, this is someone I can rally behind. Like, I believe in this brand because of that.
Yeah. Although it's funny, on some forums, you hear a bunch of FBA sellers are dealing with, they like it, but they hate it too. So it's kind of funny.
Yeah. I mean, it's still a multi-billion. The company's working. Yeah. I mean, even if there's some problems.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Alrighty. So those are kind of the 7 points from this book, Primal Branding, if you want to go check it out. So number 1, creation story. 2, the creed. 3, the icons. 4, the rituals. 5, the pagans. 6, sacred words. 7, the leader. And I also highly recommend All Marketers Are Liars too. Kind of one of my favorite books of all time, actually. So yeah.
Yep. One more shout out. If you guys go to YouTube, Effective E-commerce, gonna have new videos, a bunch of new videos Sunday when this podcast comes out, and then from here on out, every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, there's gonna be new videos out there. So check it out.
Nice. So I guess let me ask you, since we're on the topic, we're talking about the YouTube channel. Are you gonna have like videos every week and then an email list, or what's kind of your game plan for this? Have you thought about that yet?
Yeah, I'm definitely going to do an email list. The point of the email list is going to try to bring people together like as a community. But yeah, for sure, an email list.
Nice, cool. All right, then I look forward to it. And send me the link when it's live. I can share this in this episode as you're hearing this, and we can check it out. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you guys next time.
Catch you next time.